It's recording, Maureen.
Okay. Welcome to this virtual community meeting to discuss NPA 2022-0015.07.sh. If you haven't done so already, please let us know who's here by typing your name in the chat box. If you're associated with an organization, please provide that as well. I will use this as the meeting sign-in sheet. Please mute your microphone if you're joining by phone, and please turn off your video if you're participating online to save bandwidth. This meeting will be recorded and posted to the speakupboston.org/MPA website. If you do not want your image viewed publicly, please turn off your camera. My name is Maureen Meredith. I work for the City of Austin Housing and Planning Department. I am the Plan Amendment Case Manager. Heather Chafin is the Zoning Case Manager. And Mark Walters is here tonight from the Housing and Planning Department as well, and he will be facilitating the meeting. The agenda tonight, I'll go over basic case information, guidelines for group discussion, how to participate in this process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map. I'll do a brief presentation outlining the applicant's plan amendment and zoning request. Then the applicant will do a presentation. Then we will open the floor to questions and answers. The property address is 3811.5 Tannehill Lane. It's 7.96 acres. The plan amendment case number is NPA-2022-0015.05.sh, and the SH stands for Smart Housing. The project name is FC-GNDC Norman Project. The FLUM request is to change the future land use map from civic to multifamily residential. The associated zoning case number is C14-2022-0122.sh. The proposed zoning is to go from PNP, which is Public Neighborhood Plan, to MF4 NP. MF4 is Multifamily Residence, Moderate High Density District. Property owner's applicant is Austin Housing Finance Corp., and the agent is Foundation Communities with Anna Lake Smith. Guidelines for group discussion. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time during this meeting. Please postpone general comments during the Q&A session. After staff and applicant presentations, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session of the meeting, and we will call out the last 4 digits of your phone number. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then staff will open the floor to questions and answers in the chat or by attendees raising their hands to speak. Similar questions may be grouped and answered together. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking for the sake of sound quality and clarity of conversation. If you're having connection issues, turn off your video until called upon to ask your question. Please be respectful to each other during the discussion. If there are continued personal assaults, we may remove you from the meeting. Tomorrow morning, the meeting will be posted to the speakupboston.org/MPA website. You can email or call me at Heather anytime with any questions or comments that you have. If you provide written comments, we'll include them in the staff case reports that go before Planning Commission and City Council. When the cases are scheduled for Planning Commission and City Council, you'll get a notice in the mail if you live within 500 feet of the property. It'll have instructions on how to participate in these public hearings. So why is there a plan amendment application? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. City Charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendments are amendments to a future land use map, and most neighborhood plan amendments have an associated zoning application. This map shows the areas of the city that are shown in blue that have City Council approved neighborhood plans. These plans have a Word document that have a vision and goals for the planning area. And they also have a future land use map. On the future land use map, these colors represent broad land uses. For example, on this property, the existing land use is blue, and the proposed multifamily residential land use would be orange. So you can see the property there. I didn't circle it, but it is one of those blue tracks. And this is the aerial photo that shows the property is undeveloped. Google map shows some of the surrounding uses. This shows the aerial photo with the future land use map overlaid. You can see it's a light blue, outlined in blue. And to the north is public blue property. To the east is the purple, that is industry. To the west, that pinkish color, that is mixed residential, and the yellow is single family. This map shows the surrounding zoning. So the property is currently zoned PNP, as well as the property to the north. To the east, the LINP is limited industrial district. And then you have to the west SF3, which is single family residential. The Imagine Austin Growth Concept Map that you see here has indications of where there are regional centers, town centers, neighborhood centers, and then activity corridors are shown by 2 brown lines. So this map zooms in and shows where the property is in relation to those centers and corridors. So you see the Mueller Center to the top left of the screen, that is designated a town center. You see Colony Park to the northeast, that is a neighborhood center. And then you see East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is designated as an activity corridor, as well as Springdale Road and Airport. This shows the property in proximity to public transportation. So those various symbols on the map show Capital Metro rail routes, Capital Metro bus routes by the circles, and Capital Metro bus stops by the circles, and Capital Metro bus routes by the 2 brown lines. So that ends my presentation. I'll stop sharing my screen. And Anna, you can share yours.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Maureen. There we go. Okay.
We can see it.
Oh, now we're looking at everything I have open because PowerPoint crashed on me. Sorry, it's coming. Okay, well, while that's loading, I just wanted to take a second and say thank you to Maureen for walking us through this process, being here with us, and then to everyone else for joining to hear a little bit about what we're proposing on this site. So my name is Anna. I'm with Foundation Communities. We are partnering with the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation to offer both rental and ownership properties on this site. Or sorry, units. Here we go. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so a little bit about Foundation Communities, just to start. We are a homegrown Austin-based nonprofit. We've been around since 1990, and our model is providing housing first and foremost, but also the services that go along with that in order to help our residents and the communities succeed. So we have 23 communities in Austin right now. We also have 3 up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So all told, our properties are home to over 6,000 residents. There we go. So we don't have a whole lot of properties over on the east side, but just to show y'all some examples of where we are in town. This property here is M Station on East MLK, just west of Airport. And this property opened in 2011 and is 150 units. And here we have the Jordan at Mueller, which just opened in 2019 and is home to 132 families. Okay, so some of the things that set FC or foundation communities apart from other developers, number one is that we are absolutely embedded in the community in which we're building. I think, we all live in different parts of town and we're very invested in Austin. We also are what we call a lifetime owner, meaning once we develop a project, we have never sold it. So we are in it for the long haul and we build our properties as such. We also do everything in-house. So we manage the development. We also have our property and our asset management in-house, as well as our compliance and many of our services as well. We also have a long track record of fundraising for these projects. So as I mentioned earlier, a big part of what we do is not just housing, but it's the services that go along with that. So this list of things is services that we offer across the city, either in the communities themselves, or we do have two what we call Prosper Centers, one in North Austin, one in South Austin, where we host a whole bunch of additional programming. So we have four sort of major categories of services, one being for the youth. For kids, we've got 15 on-site learning centers, and Norman will be number 16. So that's primarily offering summer and after school programs, but also that programming kind of changes based on the community's need. We also have lots of financial programming where we help folks get health coverage or offer tax help, things of that nature. Adult education, things like ESL classes, computer skills. Our Free Minds program is college credit courses, and then our health initiatives department is a really key component of what we do. Norman will also have an on-site healthy food pantry that's open to residents and the community. We host cooking classes, fitness classes, nutrition classes, things like that. Okay, so Norman Commons. I'm going to talk primarily about this blue box right in the center, and then I'll pass it over to the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation to talk about the home ownership component. So we as foundation communities are going to be building and managing the rental portion of this site. So our piece is going to be 156 apartments, ranging from 1 bedroom all the way up to a couple of 4-bedroom units. Right now, our estimated annual income ranges for families, right now, the numbers for a 4-person household are between $33,000 annually and $66,000 annually. So as y'all, I'm sure y'all know, that number continues to rise very quickly in Austin. So it's very important to us that we keep our availability and our rents very low for our residents. We also build very green and are very invested in sustainable building, not only because we own the building for its lifespan, but really because that has such a huge positive effect for our residents. As I mentioned, this project will have an on-site learning center and resident amenities, and all of the programming that's available in our learning center will be available to the community at large. That also includes our healthy food pantry and other health services. And at this project, we are reserving 10% of units for households exiting homelessness. Okay, so we've got a couple extra photos we can show if anybody has any questions or wants to see some of our other work, but otherwise I will use this opportunity to turn it over to Mark Rogers and Rachel Stone with GNDC.
Thanks so much. I'm Rachel Stone. I'm the Assistant Executive Director of Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. We have Mark Rogers, the Executive Director, is on as well. GNDC is we have been in the neighborhood in Central East Austin for over 40 years. It started in 1981 as a neighborhood-driven effort to create more affordable housing and help, East Austinites stay in their neighborhood and achieve homeownership and rental opportunities. We are partnered with Foundation Communities on this project, and we're going to be building around 30 units of affordable homeownership opportunities. We provide homeownership in a community land trust, which means that the nonprofit maintains ownership of the land, but the home buyer buys the improvement, which helps keep the property affordable. It helps with long-term stewardship and keeping property taxes known and low by having the nonprofit own the land. So we'll be providing the homeownership. We're designing a variety of models to incorporate different bedroom numbers for different size families in the community. And we'll be serving people both up to 60% median family income and up to 80% median family income, which means that home sale prices will be can really be like the homes that we've sold in the past have been anywhere from 85,000, 100,000 up to 225,000 to purchase a home in Central East Austin. So we base the mortgage on 30% of the person's income a month, so that they're not paying unaffordable prices that are unaffordable for them with their mortgage payment. We started our community land trust product in 2012, and we now have 28 homes in our net zero subdivision, which is off of Tillery Street. And we are continuing to build properties in a couple of different new subdivisions throughout East Austin to help low and moderate income homeowners, families be able to become homeowners. So happy to answer questions about the community land trust and the product we're going to add to this partnership. Mark, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I think you got it. Yeah, I guess we could point out that since we follow the community land trust law that was passed in Texas in 2011, that it pretty much guarantees that at least 25%, and right now it's almost 29% of our CLT, community land trust homeownership units, are serving households and families below 60% MFI, median family income. So what that means, that's kind of nobody really knows what MFI means when you just say that. What it means is generally right now, 2022 numbers, we're looking at households that could be earning as little as $38,650 a year. And the highest income we would serve for like a household of 4 would be about 88,000. And we absolutely are committed to serving a range of incomes. As I mentioned, at least 25% of our home sales would go to folks below that 60%. So that could mean, family of 2 at 49,000 a year, making 49,000 a year, or family is 3, family 2 is 49,000 a year, and so on. So it gives you an idea of what the income levels are that we serve. And as Rachel mentioned, sales prices, the lowest that we've had since doing our land trust was 85,000, and the highest we've had is 225,000 for a family of 5 in a 4-bedroom home. So as incomes go up, the sales prices, the incomes go up, the sales prices go up. So it changes year to year, but not a whole lot. So that gives a little bit of an idea. We've done mostly single family homes, really almost entirely single family homes. And at Tannehill, we're thinking of calling it Ada Anderson Village, possibly. We're looking at different names. Our home buyer counselor has gone to, I think, a meeting of the contact team for you folks, for the MLK contact team, and gotten some ideas for names of our piece of the project. Foundation Communities is Norman Crossing, but we're going to have our own name for the homeownership units. They'll probably be duplexes, and as Rachel mentioned, with 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom units available. So that's about it. And yes, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I saw that Jamie had their hand up. If you want to go ahead with a question.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm just more curious about this community land trust. With the residents, it's like affordable housing, and yet they don't actually own the land. And then like if there's a cap, if their house appreciates, what that is. And yeah, I guess I'm just curious as to why that is the method that you guys are going about this. Obviously it's a nonprofit.
So what we're trying, there's two things that land trust and the nonprofit keeping ownership of the land. There's two things that it accomplishes. And one is it guarantees really permanent, affordability. So affordable housing in perpetuity. The land is owned by a nonprofit, us in this case, whose mission is to make sure that it remains affordable to households with low to moderate income. But the other thing, which is really important, is if you know what's happening in Austin in real estate, it's really the land values that have gone through the roof over the years, just up and up and up, to where, I remember the good old days when we could buy a lot for less than $10,000, and then $25,000 seemed like a lot of money for a piece of land, and then 50, and then so on. And now it's out of reach for not only folks out there, but for nonprofits like us. So, for example, our lots that we're developing on and selling homes are actually given a value by the Travis Central Appraisal District of $4,138. And these are lots that otherwise would be valued somewhere around $350,000, $400,000. So that guarantees that and that's going to stay that way for a long time, and the homeowners can know that. So it guarantees that the taxes remain very, as Rachel had mentioned, very manageable and kind of known. As far as your question about appreciation, we build in appreciation. If we have a sales price that's relatively low, say less than $150,000 for the house, we might put in a 2% appreciation per year. So the easiest example is if it's $100,000 sale, the next year the homeowner could sell it if they wanted to or had to for $102,000, and the year after that for $104,000. So it appreciates 2% or $2,000 per year. It's capped at 30 years. So after 30 years, there's no longer any appreciation to the home. But, in a lot of cases, they could pass it on to family members, immediate family members, children, or, sisters, brothers, and so on. The idea is to keep it affordable really forever for folks that are tied to that neighborhood where we develop.
And,
so
and also
reasons,
and also because the unit is subsidized, it helps keep, we want to keep the unit affordable in order to sort of turn over the city investment into the unit. So it's not, the homeowner's able to purchase it at a much lower price because of the city investment. And then we're turning it over again to another homeowner that's going to benefit from that.
I think an important thing, if you were to go to the name of the street that we've developed, our subdivision, is Father Joe Zanotta Street, and it's off of Tillery, just south of Goodwin Avenue, just west of Airport Boulevard. Anyway, you could see those homes, and there's no way I think that you could tell that GNDC, our nonprofit, owns that land. The people, they have gardens in front, they plant trees, they do whatever they want with it. It really is just a way to maintain affordability long term and then keep the taxes low. But as far as how it feels and to the people living there, they're basically living, and this is the reality of it, that the appraisals that we get for these homes come in, the most recent ones about a little over a year ago, were between $500,000 and $600,000. So the households get to live in a home that would sell on the market for $500,000 to $600,000 or more, and yet their mortgage payments and their taxes and everything else are based upon what they can afford to pay. So that's the beauty of it. It's community land trusts are something that's become more and more popular across the country. I think when we started in 2012, there were about 40, and now there's hundreds of community land trust organizations around the country.
Oh, okay. This is Mark Walters with the city here, and I was going to. Are you done with your discussion there, Mark?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, there's a question in the chat from about 10 minutes ago. So I want to get about almost 15 minutes ago. I want to get to that, and then we'll go to Jamie, who has his hand up. This is from the Jackie Robinson neighbors. We welcome development to our neighborhood. However, I must make you aware that we have serious crime problems on Jackie Robinson. In the past 2 years alone, we have had multiple drive-by shootings and an attempted carjacking, not to mention regular shootings in the cemetery. Is your plan going to discourage or attract more of this element to our neighborhood? With the added density, is there a partner plan with the city to increase police presence in the area?
Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Jackie Robinson neighbors for the questions and the comments. This is Sabrina from Foundation Communities. I appreciate y'all bringing this to our attention. Certainly, our goal is to be a great neighbor and a great addition to the neighborhood. We're continually refining our screening criteria for our apartments to recognize that many folks may have past history with the criminal justice system. We have a very criminal justice system that unfortunately has a lot of institutionalized racism embedded in that, and we want to respect that and make sure folks are given new opportunities when appropriate. But we also very, very much want to be developing a safe community and be a safe addition to the neighborhood. So that's very important to us. We have not spoken to APD about this community yet, although I appreciate the comments and it, maybe it makes sense to start a conversation. Regarding the last question about partnering with the city, I wanted to highlight, I think this may have been mentioned at the beginning of the presentation in passing, but I did want to kind of highlight and emphasize that this community will actually be built in partnership with the city of Austin. So y'all may know that the city owns the land that we're going to be building on. They went through a competitive RFP process last year. Foundation Communities and Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation were the lucky and very grateful recipients of the development opportunity here. And Austin Housing Finance Corporation, the kind of housing development arm of the city of Austin, will be actually part of the ownership structure of the multifamily component with Foundation Communities. So they'll be right there with us, which has been fantastic so far. They, have a lot more knowledge of who to call about specific, issues and questions as they come up. So, even in the very beginning of our design process, it's been helpful to have them as a resource on this.
Thank you. Jamie, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question or make your comment?
Okay, I have a couple of things. So yeah, I think the community land trust was interesting. Although, people owning houses, part of the thing that they're looking for is, or what housing has been for in America for, as soon as we started, was wealth generation. And so if these affordable housing units are made with keeping in mind that the taxes are low, it's in the community land trust, but I mean, the appreciation per year is 2% and it's maxed out at 30 years. So like, if they buy $100,000 house, like they're not going to be able to sell it for more than $150,000 in 30 years, which by that point, I mean, if it's already $500,000 right now, like it just seems sort of like not really encouraging actual home ownership and having these low income affordable housing people being able to actually generate their wealth. So I just find that I wouldn't like that, first of all. If I was somebody who wanted to say like, oh, I'm going to own the house, but you really don't own the land and you can really only appreciate 2%. So maybe you can comment about that. But also, there's a couple of things looking at the thing online. There wasn't a TIA done, and there wasn't also a MPZ done as well. And in this, within a quarter-mile radius of this proposed rezoning, there's already 1, 2, 3 multi-plex, like high density, middle to high density complexes that are either 2 are in construction. I think another one is still behind you guys in the process. So, you're in this little corner lot that's kind of forgotten because it's on the edge of the city, next to a school, next to, a cemetery, next to like industrial stuff. And yet like traffic on Samuel Houston has been increasing, for years now. Since Norman Sims, the school just got renovated a year and a half ago. There's a lot of traffic from buses, from parents dropping off kids. This is a pretty high density proposal that you're doing. And so I'm wondering also, like, why is it an MF4 instead of an MF3 of more moderate density? And also, like, why hasn't the traffic been, impact been looked at? Also, like, it just seems that there's so much development going on in this 1/4 mile of this one area. And I'm just wondering what, like the impact of all that. So I think I said that. And then, yeah, I'll just stop there. I have some more things to add about the homelessness and other things, but if you can just touch on those 3-4 points that I mentioned.
Yeah, I could address, you bring up a really good point about community land trusts and the ability to build wealth. And I can just say straight out that community land trusts are not about wealth building. They're just not. And that is an issue that's brought up fairly frequently. I don't know, not as a criticism necessarily, but just to point out that community land trusts don't do that. And really what they are, they're for folks who are renters generally, who would love to buy a home. Often it's especially in areas where there's a lot of displacement and gentrification. They're watching the neighborhoods where they live become increasingly unaffordable to them, either as a renter or and the home ownership opportunities are disappearing. So it's an option that's available to, rather than watch your rent money, which keeps getting increased every year, every time the lease expires, go away to a landlord, to actually own and have all the benefits, in a sense, of being a homeowner without the risks of taxes going up and so on, but also without the benefits of possibly a windfall when you sell. So it's not for people who are really looking to invest and then cash out. It's for people who want stability and the ability to stay usually in a community that they have ties to. And that's what GNDC has done from the very beginning. And when we started in 1981, our first home ownership program was 1984, and we converted a rental street into an ownership street. So that's, and that's who it serves. And that's who we're serving to this day. Our owners on Father Joe Zanota Street or on other places where we have community land trusts are people who, when we say, should you sell, and when you sell, these are required, and they go, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to leave here when I die, because their families are nearby, the people that they've grown up with, their churches, the businesses, et cetera, are there in that neighborhood, and that's where they want to live. So the 2% appreciation is nice, but that's really not what they're focused on. So it isn't for everybody. If people have the ability to go buy a home on the market and build wealth, more power to them. That's a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, in Austin and so many places across the country, people aren't even able to rent, or certainly not buy, in the places where they have so many ties and connections. And that's what we're filling that need. So you're right. It doesn't build wealth necessarily, a little bit, but the main thing is to be able to live in a really good home where they want to live and otherwise couldn't afford, and own it. So that's that piece of that. I guess you asked some other questions about traffic and so on that I think Anna or Sabrina might be able to answer better than me.
Yeah, thanks. I can take that one. So on the traffic, first and foremost, I hear you. Traffic, I think, is always at the forefront of Austinites' minds. You're right that there is not a traffic impact analysis included in our documentation. The city requires those once what's the metric is trips per day surpasses 2,000. That's kind of the city's barometer, if you will, of like when a development creates a meaningful impact on traffic. However, that of course does not take into account nearby projects and sort of the amalgamation of all of this traffic impact. So I think that's something that we think about a lot, and we talk about parking a lot. So this, for our 156 rental units, we've got somewhere on the order of 250 parking spaces, which is about 1.6 something per unit. And that's, we found that to be a pretty good ratio for our residents. We also find that our residents don't always work a typical 9 to 5 schedule. And so you have folks coming and going at different times. Also, the proximity to the elementary school is going to help us out a lot. We have a path planned on the northern edge of our site to connect right up to that sidewalk to help get folks to, or to get kids to school on foot. So that will reduce a significant amount of trips just from that alone. And then if I can address zoning, yes, so the difference for us between MF3 and MF4 primarily is height. So we in the rental building are planning 4 stories, which is going to be on the order of 50 feet. And the maximum allowed under MF3 is 40. So that's why we went up to MF4. It also reduces our front yard setback, which allows us to put the ownership units right up along Tannehill and have a really nice street presence. So those are really the 2 things we're seeking MF4 for. But hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Anna. Anybody else have any questions? They can either drop it in the chat or raise your hand and ask your question. This is your opportunity to ask questions directly of the applicant. So I encourage you to do so.
I can take I see a question in the chat about the homeless housing requirement.
Okay.
So this is something, so this is again, Sabrina Butler from Foundation Communities. So Foundation Communities, as Anna noted at the beginning, we've been building properties all over town for decades. And over the last, well, I'm not going to quote a number of years, but for quite a number of years, we've started building a preference for 10% of our units into our family properties for families with children coming out of homelessness. It's shocking the number of kids in AISD that actually don't currently have stable housing. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are living in tents. It may mean that they are living in their car, going from one family member's house to another. They may be doubled up in very overcrowded situations. And so we have been serving this population for quite a long time, very successfully in a very integrated manner in our existing family communities, and getting those kiddos into safe, stable housing so they can continue going, they can enroll in a new school and then have stability and make sure they can, can continue to go to school. These poor kids are often jumping around from school to school. So that's been a priority for us for a long time. And what we do when we serve this population is recognize that the focus is really, on housing stability, and along with that comes a focus on economic stability and economic growth. And so those families get intensive case management services for a couple years, really focused on helping the adults in the household grow their incomes, focusing on various supports that the family may need, parenting support, educational support, helping make sure that those families are connected with whatever they need to be successful. In the case of Norman Commons, we expect to serve many families with kids. That's our hope. We do have a city requirement here that we serve. We take households coming off a kind of centralized list that's maintained at a city level, and we haven't quite figured out yet exactly what that means, and if that means that every referral will be a family with children. But we certainly expect the majority of them to be very consistent with the population we've been serving. I hope that addresses that comment.
Yeah, there's a comment in the chat from Michael Billick. He says, personally, I don't think increased traffic justifies blocking very necessary housing in the city. Even if there is an increased traffic, there are alternative methods of transportation available. The city just put in a lot of money into bike lanes on Springdale, and Cap Metro pickup serves our area. So, and I see that there's a hand raised. Jamie, could you unmute and ask your question, please?
So first of all, let me say that I'm actually studying right now in school to be a planner. So just find this interesting. So I'm very looking forward to, or not looking forward to, but pro, places of density, multifamily housing. I like this idea, I guess, of affordability, and yet there's just like a couple of things. You know, I think Anna was talking about how you guys find candidates. So, and you know, I don't know if you actually about like homelessness was like families that were referred. But I know for sure, since I live on the street, there's one guy and then that's always here. He's homeless, and there's another one that's down by the gas station. So like, what is like who again? I know you said you have to look at the selection process, but I feel like if you're gonna be building something in this neighborhood and there's a Salvation Army just up the road and there's a homeless guy half a block across, like how could you incorporate those people into your residency? And then the next thing is like, I'm just curious if, you know, it's not about building equity and generational wealth, that's fine. But so what do these people want to move out, right? But their house is only worth $110,000 after 5 years, and there's nowhere else to be affordable. So it's like they really, after a while, they're not really going to have another options besides staying at this affordable housing and still living and surrounded by an expensive city. So I guess those are just my concerns. Is like if homelessness is going to be talked about. You know, I feel like there's a lot of it around us in this community. So I think that should be addressed or looked at. And yep, I guess you can't really do much about the other stuff that I was talking about. But yeah, I mean, 256 parking lots for cars, like it's not that much, but with giving just down the road on Jackie Robinson, like half a block, there's another development going on there. Yeah, so I don't know, just very interested in the analysis and execution of this from this nonprofit partnership with, I'm not sure who the other person is, but yeah, sorry that was a little choppy.
Jamie, this is Sabrina. I think I picked up one question that I'm clear on, and let me know if there's follow-up questions that I don't hit. But I think you mentioned that there's a couple individuals that you know of personally that are currently unhoused and living in the neighborhood. I'm gonna admit that the homeless response system in Austin is so complicated. I don't want to misspeak, but I mentioned that this is a city partnership, and as part of that, the city is requiring that the 10% of folks we serve here are going to come off sort of the centralized list. And so that typically is sort of prioritizing people and sort of certain, like trying to find the right match for the right person, I guess I'll say. And for fair housing reasons, we can't go give like a one unit to a particular person that we may know. So it might make sense to say this person is currently sleeping across the street. It makes sense to put them in this unit, but that just may or may not pan out exactly that way, just based on the city's system. There's so many people across, around town that just are going to need, whatever units are available. I will say, for those multifamily units, those larger units, will be prioritized for larger families. And so those larger units that will be serving folks coming out of homelessness, I do expect we'll get a lot of folks from the Salvation Army and other kind of temporary, and the Rathgeber Center just up the street. We do already serve a lot of folks kind of coming out of those temporary housing opportunities. In terms of, okay, I see a follow-up question about putting folks on a list. Yes, so two things. I think one, there will be our list for Norman Commons, the rental housing. Once we start construction or midway through construction, we typically, we don't do it too early because people are so, mobile. If somebody put themselves on the list now, and 3 years when we finish, they, may not still be interested or around. But once we're kind of midway through construction, we will open a property-specific interest list, and anybody in the community that is interested in this housing can put their names on the list. Then when we open lease up and start accepting applications, they'll get notified and can go through the process. In terms of the centralized wait list for folks that are unhoused, yes, if you're speaking to these individuals that are in your neighborhood, I would encourage you to check with them and see if they've completed I'm going to use the wrong term, but there's some intake forms that various homeless service providers can help folks with to make sure that they're officially on the list and can get resources as they come available. Obviously, we're short units compared to the number of people that need that housing right away, but yes, there is a process to get on that list. That's not something Foundation Communities manages, but there are a number of homeless outreach agencies that will help folks get on that centralized list. And that'll open up opportunities all over town for those folks as they become available. Jamie, let me find the website for the organization that is probably your best first source of contact. Sorry, they may then refer you to some partner organizations, but at least it'll be a start for you.
Thank you, Sabrina. There's a question from the Jackie Robinson neighbors. With the added density to this area, I assume your project, how can we avoid the curbs, streets on Jackie Robinson and nearby other streets being permanent parking lots? So I guess they're asking, what kind of parking are you going to provide on site?
Yeah, I can address that one. Thanks, Mark. So I think I mentioned the parking numbers being that sort of roughly 250 for our 156 units. That is for us about right sized for our properties. We over the last year or so we've done a call it a parking audit of our existing properties and factoring in things like public transportation and sidewalk infrastructure so that we have a pretty good idea of how many cars might be present at a community. Of course, it's hard to know, like, you get the one family who's got grandma and 2 kids in high school and 2 working adults, like they maybe have more cars. We can't account for that. So it really is kind of a rough estimate of what I would consider right sizing so that all of our residents can park in the parking lot. And we're not also wasting space to parking spaces that will be used.
Also, there are minimum parking standards required based on the number and type of units, correct?
Yes, they do exist.
Yes, so there are standards that the city has that all development must adhere to. There's a question from Gwen Snyder and asking, we'll go back to about the list, but also I think that the other question, I think you addressed her first one. Will there be childcare options or coordination with childcare subsidy for the project?
So Norman Commons specifically will have what we call a learning center, and that is really sort of childcare for school age kids. A number of our learning centers do have teen programs, but those are kind of more specific to the communities where there happen to be a lot of teenagers who would benefit from that programming. So that's really school age kids. For the families who are part of our, Sabrina mentioned our Children's Home Initiative program, those families do all have access to a caseworker who can help connect them to services such as childcare. But on site, there will not be sort of a young childcare.
Okay, thank you. So does anybody else have any questions? I think when his answers, yeah, she said thank you. So there's no more questions. We can, and maybe end a little early. A meeting doesn't have to expand to the time allotted for it. But really, I really encourage anybody who has questions. This is a really great opportunity to ask questions from the Guadalupe Community Development or Foundation Communities. Jamie, would you unmute and ask your question, please?
I think you already said this, but when will the TIA be done? You said when?
Sure. So we will not be conducting a formal TIA. That's not part of our the scope of this project, just because we are well under the required 2,000. So when you hit 2,000 trips per day, that's when you do a transportation impact analysis. So we won't be doing that report. But we are thinking about it sort of anecdotally and qualitatively.
I guess I'm just curious, what is those 2,000 trips per day like? Produced from your housing, or 2,000 trips per day on the intersection of Samuel Houston and Tannehill?
The former, so produced by the new development.
Yeah, Jamie, there's a calculation that based on the type and number of units, there's a number that's established that it will generate so many trips per unit, and then it's a multiplier, and then they multiply all that together to get to determine whether or not it meets that 2,000 trip threshold. But it's for specifically for the site. Okay, well, Maureen, do you want to put up your contact information and go and talk about the next steps in the process?
Yes. So again, here is my contact information. Heather Chapin is a zoning planner. The next steps, my team will meet. We'll make a recommendation on the plan amendment request. The zoning planners will meet. They'll make a recommendation on the zoning request. We'll work with the East MLK planning contact team on a letter of recommendation once we've scheduled the cases for planning commission and city council. Anybody who lives within 500 feet or even outside, if they wanted to submit any comments to be included in the staff case report, you can email it to me and Heather. If you want to touch base with me in a week or so to see what the planning commission and city council dates are, you can do that. We just don't know at this time.
Thank you, Maureen. And there is a Jackie Robinson Neighbors had a comment. It says, "Thank you for taking the time to answer our questions. We support housing opportunities for those that need them, but are very worried about crime in this area. While we understand your views about the criminal justice system, we hope you will be selective about the people who move into this neighborhood. We simply can't have any increased frequency of shooting or burglaries." And there was another question before that. It says, how long had the GNDC been in operation? I think at the beginning you said it's been in operation for 40 years, since 1981. I think that's what
correct.
I heard.
Yeah. Since 1981 and 1984, we finished our first projects. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, since 1981. Okay, there it is. Rachel put it all in there.
Right.
And Jamie says he doesn't. Go ahead.
Oh, just regarding our choice of the neighborhood, I mean, we give priority to people with generational ties to East Austin. So this we saw as a great opportunity to help serve people on our waiting list who have been displaced from East Austin or trying to buy homes in East Austin, but are otherwise forced to remain as renters or have had to leave the neighborhood. So that's why we wanted to participate in this project at this location.
Okay. Well, right before we sign off, does anyone from the applicants have any final comments they'd like to make before we sign off for the evening?
Thanks for having us. It's great to have an opportunity to meet y'all, your voices, I have some notes here. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out if you've got further questions or anything else you'd like to discuss.
Okay, and Gwen Snyder is typing, so before and she stopped. So, well, I'd also like to thank everybody who took a little time out of their evening to find out about this project. And we would like to wish you all a really good night, and thank you for turning up and finding out about this project. So everybody have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.